As you may know, I am a chronicler and collector of the wit and wisdom of the West, and so this is an example of that for you here. I'm going to tell a little story about something that happened in my life this week, and I'll tell you every word of it is true. Cowboy is known to exaggerate from time to time, but in this case, it wasn't necessary. Folks, it seems there was a bunch of cowboys sitting around their local watering hole, the Red Rooster, where the alcoholic beverages are guaranteed to get you drunk if consumed in great enough quantities. And these cowboys were having a damn fine time, swapping stories, bragging, showing off, and singing old songs, though the words might often escape them. Hell, that's why God invented whistling. Now, into this scene of cowboy contentedness walked a familiar face and a welcome sight indeed. Beck Landry, down from the high country, smiling a smile as wide as the Rio Grande, every one of his tobacco-stained teeth on full and glorious display. Now, a smile that wide should not normally be a noteworthy affair, but on the face of Beck Landry, why, it was just as rare a sight as a hard-on at a funeral. Or a duck in a truck stop toilet. Take your pick. This is a work in progress. I think those are both good. Now, Beck was smiling wide, and that's a rare sight, and Lester cried out to him in amusement and delight. He says, "Beck, why are you smiling?" And Beck sidled up, and he perched himself up on a stool and nodded to the bartender, who was already pouring him a whiskey, and Beck said, "Well, boys, this morning I found out my irrigation system up and died on me, and it killed all my crops." Okay. And then he says, "And I was putting up hay, and I threw my neck out." Oh, he says, "Okay." And then he says, "My best dog got bit by a rattler and died in my arms." And I tell you what, we're staring at him, and he is still smiling wide. He takes a sip of that whiskey and slams it down and asks for another one, still smiling. If anything, the smile was even getting bigger. And then he went on, to our astonishment, and he said, "Then I found out that my wife is having a baby with the ranch hand. I called her a whore, and she kicked me in the nuts, and then she held me down while the ranch hand pissed in my face. And I told her to get out, and she said, 'Fine, but first I'm going to burn down the barn,' and that's just what she did, and killed a lot of my livestock. And I tried to call the insurance man and found out that policy I paid cash for wasn't real insurance. The only thing it insured me against was ever seeing again the man that sold it to me. Then my horse threw me, and I landed on the fence and punctured my lung on the barbed wire. And then I heard that some folks caught salmonella from my eggs, and now I'm getting sued. And lastly, I've got blood in my stool, and the doctor says that ain't normal." And then he says, "And take a look at this." And he lifted up his shirt, and there was a railroad spike sticking out of his chest. I said, "How'd you get that, Beck?" And he says, "Well, I saw old Barton Fisk this morning, and I thought he was looking at my ass, and I told him so, and I knew it was going to be a fight, and it was, and well, I reckon he won." He says to him, "Beck, now, if all that happened to you, why are you smiling?" And he took a beat, a sip of whiskey, looked at us and said, "Well, boys, I still got my cowboy hat." So that's a cute little story. I thought you'd enjoy that one. Funny little story of something that happened this week out there on the range. And then after that, he actually tracked down his wife and that ranch hand. He killed them before succumbing to his railroad spike wounds. We buried him just yesterday. And come to think of it, you know what? We forgot to bury him with his cowboy hat. That's a shame, because he probably would have liked that. I think that hat meant a lot to him. Oh, well. Anyhow, that is a story from this week out there on the range. And with that, we will get started with the wit and wisdom of